Iran rains missiles on Israel. Middle East war clouds darken. Israel vows to make Iran pay. Iran warns of bigger retaliation. Brink of another world war.
All speculation of what Iran's attack on Israel would look like has been laid to rest after a night of nearly 200 missiles raining down on Israel. We're not only going to decode for you precisely what happened, because there are a lot of claims and counterclaims doing the rounds. There's a lot of fog of war. But here in India today, we're also going to get you the biggest Israeli voice in the country at this point of time to help us understand where things stand at this crucial juncture, even as the world stands on tenterhooks and wonders whether this could expand and explode into a much more damaging, much more destructive global conflict. I'm Shiv Aroor. Thanks as always for being with me. Images of a surreal kind painting the night sky in airspace between Iran and Israel. Thousands of mobile phones by citizens capturing first the missiles taking off from Iran and then being intercepted in the airspace over Israel with a handful of those missiles finding their way through some of the world's most advanced air defense technology to hit the ground in Israel. Iran says that large-scale destruction has taken place on the ground in Israel. Israel has categorically denied this and said that no military bases have been hit and that the damage on the ground is very, very minimal. To talk about this, to decode what has taken place, there can be no bigger voice in the country than Ambassador Reuven Azar. He is the Israeli ambassador to India, and he joins India today at a critical juncture for his country. A very warm welcome to you, Ambassador. We'd all first like to wish you a very happy Jewish New Year. Rosh Hashanah starts today. I wish these were in happier circumstances. This was a time when thousands and millions of citizens would have been looking to celebrate the Jewish New Year, and it looks like Iran timed this attack right before that.
That's right, Shiv. Thank you very much for this interview. What Iran did is that it fired a barrage unprecedented in history of humankind of 181 ballistic missiles. The payload of each missile is between 700 to 1,000 kilograms of explosive, capable of destroying an entire building, of destroying many lives. Israel, together with our partners, the United States, neighbouring Arab countries, which we thank them for their support, have thwarted this attack completely. Yes, we had some missiles hitting open areas, but thank God we are safe. Israel has the best missile defense system in the world that was developed by our best technological people, and Israel actually has performed very well. Iran has made a very serious mistake. Shiv, you have to understand, the Iranians have been so far fighting against us for some reason, their genocidal, fanatic, theocratic ideology is very difficult to understand, but they have been having a free ride. They've been fighting us with some of our Arab neighbors that are as fanatical as they are. But guess what? The Hamas terror machine is over. Nasrallah is dead. Mohammad Def is dead. They are left without their biggest proxies. And they decided to continue the fight directly against Israel, and they will pay a price.
Let's talk about some of the specific claims that are being made, Ambassador Azar, at this point of time. Iran like you rightly said, fired upwards of 180 ballistic missiles. They say that some of these missiles were of a hypersonic variety, etc. It's difficult to assess at this point because there's this fog of war. One of the more dramatic claims that they've made is that 3 air bases in Israel have been hit. There are some reports in Iranian media of tens of fighter aircraft being destroyed, F-35s and F-15s and things like that. Not to go into specifics, but there seems to be a very wide gap between what damage Iran is claiming and what Israel is confirming on the ground. Is the truth somewhere in the middle?
Well, it's very embarrassing for them, because the IDF spokesman, which is generally a very, very credible person, has said, it's not a claim, it's just reported exactly what happened, okay? What happened is that missiles have hit Israel, some of them that weren't intercepted. We didn't intercept those who would hurt essential places or civilians or military bases. And the rest we just don't intercept because it's not worthwhile to invest in a missile to intercept something that is going to hit in the open space. So it's very embarrassing for the Iranians. I understand. They have prepared all this machinery of war, spent billions of dollars on the account of the oppressed Iranian people that do not have water, that are suffering from lack of essential things in life. They have deprived them from that from them, and instead they are investing in this terror campaign to create these armies to choke the state of Israel, take control of the Middle East. These dreams have vanished. They are not worth anything.
Are you saying this was Iran's best shot? Because they've been talking about a days-long war. They've said, when Iran finally attacks, it won't be just a few salvos of missiles like what we saw last night. It will be a longer campaign that can go on for many, many days.
Well, probably.
Are you saying that this was Iran doing its best, its hardest punch?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that Iran has been investing in this machinery of war and of terror, in terrorizing not just Israel. They are responsible for killing 500,000 people in Syria. They have taken hostage the state of Lebanon. With the pretext of fighting ISIS, they have created all these militias in Iraq. They have destroyed Yemen. They have destroyed the Middle East. And they are trying to destroy the state of Israel. So what happened is that they failed. They failed colossally because 2 of their main proxies in the region were defeated by Israel, and now they find themselves having at last to fight themselves, and they are failing. They might have more missiles, but whoever is the aggressor must pay a price. And I'm very glad that many countries around the world have condemned what Iran has been doing. And I'm sure we're going to find a way to send a clear message to this fanatical regime that we will not bear. They made a very big mistake. They don't understand the conviction of our people. People don't understand what is the conviction of the Israeli people, and they are claiming that we are a rotten society, because they don't understand what democracy is. When countries like Israel, that are peace-loving, are trying to postpone wars, not to fight, not to overreact, they take it as a sign of weakness. So they've been trying us time and again until they leave us no choice but to react. And when we react, you see the results.
What are Israel's options right now? We do know that whatever response it is, it can be a wide spectrum. It doesn't need to be in the so-called visible spectrum. It can be damage of the kind that never gets reported, as we've seen in intelligence operations. But what appears certain, Ambassador, for observers around the world is that after the kind of attack that Iran perpetrated on Israel yesterday, there has to be a response. And Israel has said it will happen at a time and place of their choosing and of a type of their choosing. Can you tell us what these options are? What kind of an attack? The reason I ask, what these scenarios could be is because unlike Iran's proxies, unlike the Hamas and the Hezbollah and the Houthis, which are ultimately proxies, this is the mothership, as it were. And therefore, offensive operations against the mothership of these proxies is going to be a different game altogether.
Well, I'm not going to enter into operational aspects, but what I can tell you is the following. We are creating the conditions that will allow us to enjoy peace and stability in the long term, that we will be able, together with our neighbors, those who want to live with us, we will find a way to live together in prosperity. So we are going to continue to neutralize the capabilities of our enemies that have a common denominator. They are all guided by this octopus coming from Iran. We are going to neutralize those capabilities, or at least minimize them as much as we can, with the hope that people will take the message that the people of Iran that actually love the state of Israel, the Persian people love the state of Israel. They are oppressed by this regime. One day, they will wake up. We hope that one day they wake up and they fight these tyrants. It's very difficult to do.
But the people of Iran, in some ways, have been trying to fight that oppression. So, I agree with your point that, that there is oppression taking place in Iran. But my question to you is, in the context of, I understand that operational aspects cannot be discussed, that's normal. But in the context of this current cycle of, war exchanges between the two countries, what would be that end game? When you say that this octopus called Iran is the reason why all of these things are happening, what boxes need to be ticked, Ambassador, for the war to stop?
Yeah. So number one, when it comes to the Gaza Strip, we will not allow Hamas to rearm and regroup.
Yeah.
We have to bring back our hostages. That's a difficult dilemma. We have to deal with that. We want all of them to come back home. We may do compromises on the way, but we will not allow Hamas to rearm and regroup. The IDF is conducting now operations in the south of Lebanon. The Iranians are trying to deny it. Hezbollah is trying to deny it. We have right now forces of 2 divisions of the IDF that are taking care of cleaning the infrastructure that was created by Hezbollah to attack the state of Israel, to do another 7th of October on Israel. This is an amazing infrastructure with underground tunnels, with explosives. We are going to clean the south of Lebanon, and we are going to make sure that Hezbollah cannot return to those places. And when it comes to Iran itself, well, again, I'm not going to get into the details, but the regime will understand what we mean when we say that it committed a huge mistake.
Has anything changed, Ambassador, vis-a-vis the United States? In April, most people think that this is the first time that Iran has attacked Israel. It's not. It's not even the first time this year. As you know, in April this year, using long-range projectiles and drones, I think 300 or 400 in number, Iran had attacked Israel. Many of those projectiles were intercepted. At that time, that was also seen as a big provocation in April this year. But as we saw it, as we reported it, Israel was in some ways constrained by the United States from a sort of big visible response directly for that attack against Iran. Wouldn't that happen this time as well, or has something changed?
I think that something changed, Shiv, because, look, it's very natural that countries around the world, like the United States, like India, like other countries that are concerned from the violence, that they will try to get de-escalation happening. And, we tried ourselves as well. We tried to confine this fight just to the Gaza Strip, because we were attacked from the Gaza Strip. But guess what? The Iranian regime, Hezbollah, the Houthis, they didn't play that game. They played by a different book. At the end of the day, when they continue, time and again, we waited 11 months before we seriously started to retaliate against Hezbollah. Okay? We waited for months before we seriously started to retaliate against the Houthis. All of that with the hope to keep this conflict as confined as possible.
Yeah.
In coordination with our allies, with the United States. We might have differences from time to time, but at the end of the day, we have the same goal. We want to stabilize the region. We have a common interest to fight the terrorists. We want to do it with a less use of violence as possible. But when the other side doesn't play that game and openly says that they're going to destroy you, then you don't have a choice. And Israel here was caught in a situation in which we don't have a choice. We have consensus in Israel from wall to wall that we have to deal with that threat, that actually this is an opportunity to show the Iranians how serious we are. We have created a situation in the last 2 weeks that their entire architecture that they've built has collapsed. And they are trying to portray, out of embarrassment to the Iranian public, they're trying to lie to the Iranian public as if Israel is crumbling. On the contrary, Israel is very strong, our economy is strong, our people have conviction, they have motivation, our soldiers will keep on fighting until we bring back stability.
So are you saying that after what happened yesterday, the missile attacks on Israel, that the United States and Israel are fully aligned towards what Israel's response could be? The reason I'm asking again, you have to understand, is because the United States has a big presence here. It has its own concerns as well. It has said that its support for Israel is ironclad. But as we saw in April, there are wheels within wheels. There are pressures. There can be diplomatic constraints to try and stop Israel from acting in the manner that it may choose to see.
Well, you always have this kind of dynamic when it comes to our region, because, you know, the great powers that be, they look at the larger picture. But again, Iran is making the closeness, the proximity between the United States and us much closer, because at the end of the day, we have a common enemy. You know, for the Iranians, we are the small Satan. The United States is the big Satan. They are their sworn enemy. And this is part of an Iranian plan to have hegemony of the Middle East, of the Muslim world, and then fight the West. So, as much as we want to de-escalate, at the end of the day, when countries like Iran continue with their plan, do not back off, do things that are unprecedented in the history of humankind, then you cannot remain silent. And I'm sure the United States, this time, will not remain silent when it comes to Israel's actions.
Do you think the U.S. election and the normal uncertainties that revolve around any upcoming election, do you think that adds a layer of wait and watch on both sides as well, especially from Iran's side?
Well, look, I'm not going to analyze the U.S. elections. That's an internal process. What I can tell you is that, yes, people are watching. People are watching. And that's the reason why we have a duty, not just a right, to fight back. Okay? And this is, I think, what's going to happen.
Ambassador, how do you see how the United Nations, has performed or been involved in this entire case? We've seen what's happened with the UN Secretary General now. You've seen their statements before. The irony of this entire situation, of course, is that it's ultimately a UN charter, that seems to be the goal for a kind of more sustainable peace in the region. And Israel quotes that quite often. You did with me in your last interview as well. How would you assess how the UN has been in this cycle of conflict?
Look, if the Secretary General of the United States, the Secretary of the United Nations cannot condemn the flagrant violation of the UN Charter when a country like Iran is swearing to destroy another member of the United Nations and doesn't even condemn that, it says that something in the system is flawed. I'm not saying that every agency of the UN is flawed. No. There are many countries, good intentions, doing a lot of good things in the UN. But when you have a situation in which the head of UNRWA doesn't fire a terrorist that was heading the education system of the Palestinians in Lebanon. He was in charge of 39,000 students. He was the most senior Hamas member in Lebanon. And he was getting a salary from the UN. And when we complained, they didn't even fire him. Can you grasp that? It's completely unacceptable. There are things that will have to change in the UN if it wants to get cooperation from the State of Israel.
That cooperation hasn't been forthcoming from the UN so far. We've seen, Israel has always had an adversarial, troubled relationship with the United Nations vis-a-vis, Iran, vis-a-vis Palestine. Do you see that changing now?
Well, it depends with which agency. There are agencies with which we are cooperating. From time to time, there can be mishaps, but we are sitting around one table like we've been doing since the 7th of October, taking care of the humanitarian aspects of the Gaza Strip. Every day, in an office, we used to sit together with all the humanitarian agencies, including UN agencies, and working with them, despite their bias. But enough is enough. People have to understand, when Israel is being attacked with such a barrage of missiles, and the Secretary General of the UN doesn't condemn it, how does the UN look?
After last night, Ambassador, this has been going on for a few days and weeks now. The anticipation or the fear that this could lead into a wider conflict and draw in other countries. There's Russia, there's China, there are other regional powers that might, in some limited way, be forced to actually get in because all of these countries have interests in the region. Do you think after last night that appears to be a much more distinct possibility, or do you think it's still going to be contained, between Israel and this seven-front war, as you put it, is playing out?
I'll tell you why it will be contained. It's because...
It will be contained,
yes, because no country agrees to what Iran has been doing in our region and with the way it has been behaving in the last few months and weeks. And therefore, Iran will not be backed. Iran will have to stand alone and pay for its reckless, aggressive, fanatic, radicalist approach.
How do you see Prime Minister Modi's message to Prime Minister Netanyahu a couple of days ago, where he spoke very specifically about terrorism, and he was talking in the context of the Hezbollah? Prime Minister Modi was one of the first world leaders to react after the October 7th attacks by the Hamas last year. But this latest comment has also been analyzed quite a bit because India, is, as you know this better, stands in a unique position of having diplomatic channels and relations with all of these countries that we're talking about here. So how did you see that message?
I saw it as a very positive message. India has a unique perspective. It has a unique standing in this world. And we have a common interest to fight terrorism. We don't have to talk much, just have to do it. And that's what we're doing.
Do you see a bigger role for a country like India at a time when what's happening between Israel and Iran and the proxies has polarized the world? There are, of course, interests. There are, of course, pulls and pressures, diplomatically speaking. But India does have a unique position, like you said, of having extremely close relations with Israel at many different levels, not just diplomatic, but strategic, trade, cultural, etc. But not equally, but also has very warm relations with Iran. And it has connections with Iran of a different kind, from the perspective of energy security and things like that. Does that, in your view, and does that in Israel's view, provide some kind of an opportunity for India to have some kind of role in whatever plays out now?
Well, I think India will have to decide itself what kind of role it wants to have. The fact that different countries have links to Iran doesn't mean that they're going to back any crazy kind of conduct like you are seeing right now. So I think that in situations like that, people have to move aside, and we have to do what we have to do. And I think people understand that. There's no doubt about it. There might be some people don't understand it, but I think that when you look at the entire international community today, there's nobody that is coming to defend the reckless, aggressive behavior of Iran.
Because Iran, continues to try, while Israel and Israel's allies, Israel's friends, large part of the world, does see Iran as an irresponsible aggressor, Iran has tried to project itself as as a kind of savior in the region, containing Israel, making sure Israel, which is backed by the United States, doesn't, become more powerful. We've seen that battle of narratives play out, and I was in Israel last year, and I saw so much of that. Have things changed in the last 1 year? Because, Ambassador, now we're standing a few days before the first anniversary of that horrific attack on Israel last year. Israel has borne the brunt of a huge international narrative against it. Do you think that has changed now?
Well, look, we have to differentiate between two things. First of all, you have the region. In the region, things have changed a long time ago because the countries and the peoples of the region have seen the Iranian conduct through their proxies and the atrocities they've been committing in Syria and other places. And therefore, years ago, Arab countries have changed their approach. They have come closer to Israel. We have signed the Abraham Accords, and now we are having military cooperation. And I'm sure that after this war, we're going to resume the regional cooperation. Okay? When it comes to narratives, well, these narratives are being created by different agents with a lot of money, like Al Jazeera channel. Their representative, I heard, here in India, has propagated tweets supporting Hitler and Nazi Germany. When you have people like that investing billions of dollars in promulgating false information, then you will have a fight of narratives. But this is not that important. At the end of the day, what is important is what is happening on the ground. What is happening on the ground is that the majority of the countries and the peoples of the world are actually very proud that Israel is finally fighting back and teaching these terrorists a lesson.
My final leg of this interview, Ambassador, is about moving a couple of steps back from what happened last night to the ground operations that were ongoing in southern Lebanon. Those operations are ongoing. Hassan Nasrallah has been killed. The leadership of the Hezbollah, virtually the entire leadership of the Hezbollah has been eliminated in these airstrikes. What next as far as the Hezbollah is concerned? Because this isn't the first time that Israel has engaged with the Hezbollah, has hit their targets, tried to destroy their infrastructure. Each time they have returned, they've recuperated, they've rearmed. In many ways, they've come back with even more sophisticated weapons. Is there going to be a greater degree of finality, you would say, in what is happening now vis-a-vis the Hezbollah?
Well, we have to be very cautious here when we say what is going to happen, because the Israeli government has declared a very specific goal. We want to implement UN Security Council Resolution 1701, 1558, to clean the entire southern Lebanon from Hezbollah forces. Israel is not going to determine the political future of Lebanon. It's for the Lebanese people to decide the political future of Lebanon. If they are going to continue to surrender to Hezbollah, the price will be dear for Lebanon because it is being destroyed by Hezbollah. We are going to meet our defined goals of protecting our civilians, getting our 70,000 civilians back to their homes safely, and for that, South Lebanon has to be clean of Hezbollah. The Lebanese army should come there and restore order together with the UNIFIL forces, which have, as you know, an Indian element. Thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And this is a story that is very important to us here on India Today. As you can see, we cover it very closely. We have journalists on the ground in Lebanon, in Iran, as well as in Israel at this point of time. And we will continue to report very, very closely on all aspects of this story. Thank you for taking our questions once again here on India Today. Pleasure. And once again, a very happy New Year to you and your family. When India Today covers conflict, when we cover war, we believe in covering it from the ground, not just via agencies. So what you're about to watch is a world exclusive from India Today's cameras, not something acquired secondhand. These are pictures taken by India Today's Ashraf Wani, live from the ground from the virtually destroyed headquarters, one part of it which you'll see in this report, of the Hezbollah headquarters near Beirut in Lebanon. It's not very far from here that Hassan Nasrallah was killed in an airstrike from Israel. Watch this world exclusive report by my colleague Ashraf Wani.
I'm currently standing and am the first international journalist from India today who is at the Hezbollah headquarters here in South Beirut. Behind me you can see this was a six-story building when Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, was taking a meeting of his commanders in the basement, which was underground almost 15 feet below the ground, where he was taking that meeting. 2,000 pounds of bombs dropped on this building by the F-15 warplanes, which completely brought this building on ground. And after the efforts for 4 days, finally the body of and we would like to take some details from here of the Hezbollah leaders, what really happened here, and what happened after this blast, and what was its impact not only here but also in the periphery. In fact, since then there is regular airstrikes in this area, suburbs of Beirut, and today on Wednesday, 7 airstrikes were carried out by the IDF. Yesterday, a television station was targeted, its compound was targeted, that collapsed in that attack, and today a communication tower has been targeted in this area, and we are facing the internet problems in this particular area here in the Beirut. Ashraf Ani for this World India Today.
An incredibly fearless reporting by India Today's Ashraf Wani. In fact, he joins me live from Beirut in Lebanon now. Ashraf, I hope you're staying safe. Your ground report from the bombed headquarters of the Hezbollah and that world exclusive is being watched by millions of people right now. Tell us in a greater detail, Ashraf, what you saw right now. How far from there was the site where Hassan Nasrallah was killed, and what did you see?
Shiv, we have also those pictures where Hassan Nasrallah was killed, probably that may be used later in the bulletin. Actually, this is not, this is a South Beirut. The major part of the Beirut city suburbs where most of the population and mostly the Shia population and the supporters as well as the fighters of Hezbollah live. For last 2 days, twice I went to that area, but in car. That also very far because the area is still being pounded by the idea bombs regularly. Not only yesterday, but even today, 7 strikes were carried out in the periphery of South Beirut, where some housing compartments were targeted, some floors of multi-stories buildings were targeted. And IDF said that they are the housing of the Hezbollah fighters and commanders. But here, some of the people say probably they may be associated with the Hezbollah, but they have not seen them fighting for the Hezbollah. That is the intelligence input, what is with the Israel. But tense situation in whole South Beirut. Not a single person is visible there from the civil population. If anyone is roaming there, those are only Hezbollah fighters and their supporters. Today, at that moment, we were at least with me 800 journalists across the globe who are covering this war. They were allowed first time to visit the South Beirut because journalists in other way not here to travel in that particular area because, as I said, today it was bombed 7 times. As far as the Hassan Nasrallah's hideout, or we can say Hezbollah headquarters is concerned, there is visible that there was an underground floor which was used by the Hezbollah commanders as well as the IRG guards for the meeting purposes and other purposes. That was built in that way that so that any bomb or any strike could not affect that. But when I equally 2 days back spoke a doctor, he said that the bomb used in this blast of the Hezbollah headquarters could penetrate 15 floors of a single building. So they were only 6 floors. So you can imagine that after collapsing or entering from those top 6 floors, that bomb has went deep 4 floors further and completely push up the basement of, or we can say the underground floor of that building.
Ashraf, how are the ground operations going? You know, you've sent us reports of certain Hezbollah ambushes on Israeli army patrols. How is that working out?
Yes, that is the plus point with the Hezbollah. They are very much trained in the ground operations. They have in 2006 operated on ground. So it was a risky task for the IDF to invade into the South Lebanon, where already Hezbollah fighters and their commanders know each and every curve, each and every mountain. In fact, they have some underground bunkers and tunnels there in the South Lebanon. It is not easy task either for the special forces of Israel or for the regular army. Today, when one of the big contingents, we can say the regiment division of the army was preparing for the ground invasion in the northern border of Israel, which is with the South Lebanon, that was directly fired by the 60 missiles of Hezbollah within the 2 hours. And those all missiles, no missile from those could have been destroyed by the dome system, because there is not on the border the dome system which IDF is using in the habitats. So that has put some damage in that army division. The Israeli army has confirmed 2 casualties, 2 deaths in that rocket attacks by the Hezbollah and 18 injuries. And also there is not population, civilian population. There are only soldiers of the Israeli army. So in the need of blood, the settlers who were there, they were asked to donate blood for the injured soldiers in that incident in northern Israel.
Ashraf, thank you very much for that live report. As always, please continue to stay safe and bring us these amazing, amazing ground reports that you're continuing to do. Thank you very much. Stay safe. We will connect with you again, once again, in a very short while from now. Thank you, Ashraf Wani, reporting live from Beirut in Lebanon. He's been traveling in the other areas as well. These images have become a viral face of Iran's attack on Israel last night. They are seen as a tipping point. Hundreds of missiles raining hell on Israel, or at least trying to. They've become representative of perhaps the biggest escalation in this cycle of the violence so far. Take a look at what exactly these pictures meant, what exactly they signify, and what precisely was happening as people in their thousands pulled out their mobile phones to record videos like this. Watch this.
Like fireworks in a night sky, salvos of Iranian ballistic missiles painting a surreal canvas in the dark airspace over Israel. Missiles in their hundreds soaring into the air, each dot of light representing thruster flames, propelling a warhead towards a target. Images that have viraled around the world, becoming the face of this latest escalation in a crisis that's just shy of a year old. Iran, which has large arsenals of ballistic missiles, had held back from any direct attack until the night of October 1st, when dozens of these missiles, Imad, Ghadar and Fatah 2 missiles, attempted to hit multiple targets across the country. The attack even involved the first use of a hypersonic version of Iran's Fatah 2 missile. Iran claimed that these streaks of light hit most of their targets. With Iranian reports even suggesting that the missiles managed to destroy large numbers of Israeli combat aircraft. A claim not proven with evidence thus far. The haunting lights in the darkness, a message to Israel from Iran. A message that Iran not only has the ability to strike, but the ability to strike specific targets. Israel's air defense systems, including the Iron Dome, did manage to intercept several of the incoming missiles. With almost certain help from United States air defense assets situated in the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. But the sheer number of missiles launched together meant that at least some of the missiles managed to evade interception and hit their targets. The unending stream of imagery of the missiles in flight painted across the night sky won't be forgotten soon and will thicken the clouds that now darken between the two countries. Bureau Report, India Today.
Well, most of those missiles did get intercepted by Israel's world-famous advanced air defense systems. But some of those missiles most definitely did impact their targets in Israel. Let's take a look at some of those that we appear to be certain about. This has been put together by India Today's open source intelligence team. One missile strike near the Mossad headquarters, even though no damage to the Mossad headquarters itself in Tel Aviv. One near a school in the town of Gedera. Some missiles appeared to be hitting in or around the Nevatim air base, which houses Israel's F-35 stealth fighters. This is in the Negev desert in the south, but once again, no confirmation on any damage. Israel says categorically nothing has been destroyed. The Ayalon Mall in Tel Aviv, there appear to have been some missiles hitting areas near that. Near the Ort Tel Nof base in central Israel also saw some missile hits, but once again, Israel has denied that any damage whatsoever was caused. Now, remember that Israel has a multi-tiered air defense system that you saw in these pictures intercepting many of those missiles. Iran has made the dramatic claim that at least 3 air bases were targeted, with a large amount of destruction actually taking place on the ground. It's become a war of claim versus counterclaim between the two sides. Take a look at this report.
Iran's fearsome attack on Israel, with missiles flames lighting up the night sky. Iran rained at least 200 ballistic missiles across Israel on Tuesday night, while some were intercepted by the famed Iron Dome system. Some did hit targets. The Iran Revolutionary Guards claimed that its missile attack on Israel targeted 3 military bases near Tel Aviv: Nevatim, Hatzerim and Tel Nof. Tehran Times, Iranian state-backed media, reported that Israel's Nevatim air base was targeted in the attack. The base reportedly houses Israel's F-35 fighter jets. The fighter jets that bombarded Beirut on September 27 flew from this military airbase. The IRG has also said that F-35 and F-15 fighter jets that were used in assassination of Hassan Nasrallah were also targeted. Iran also claims that the Mossad headquarters was targeted in precise strikes. India Today's open source intelligence team has gathered visual proof of confirmed hits on Israel near Mossad headquarters, near a school in Gedera, Nevatim Air Base, Ayalon Mall in Tel Aviv, and near Tel Nof Air Base. Israel, however, claims that the attack did not impact the capacity of its armed forces.
As we can see, a few hits with no casualties because of the responsible behavior of the public, them listening to instructions and the operating of our defense systems, as well as the activity of our partners for the protection of the citizens of Israel. We will continue to conduct ourselves in this way, both in offense and in defense.
Israel has declared that it will now respond at the time and place of its choosing. Till then, the world remains on edge. Bureau Report, India Today.
So what are Israel's response options? Israel has to respond. It said it will do so at a time and place of its choosing. But what precisely could be the possible scenarios? What could Israel really attack in Iran? Let's take you through what those scenarios are. And these are taking into view reality, possibility, and also what could be credible targets for Israel. Scenario number 1, airstrikes could take place on high-value targets like Iran's Tar Allah headquarters. That's the command center that takes care of the security of Iran's capital of Tehran. Scenario number 2, possibility number 2, there could be airstrikes on Iran's many underground missile facilities from where some of these missile attacks may have actually taken place. These include Khorramabad, Kenesht or Panchpele. There are many others as well. I'm just taking a few names. Scenario number 3, targets number 3. Missile strikes on Iranian air bases, like the ones targeted in Israel. Iranian air bases could also be targeted, like places like Isfahan, Kermanshah, or Masjid Soleiman. You know, these are air bases that house Iran's frontline fighter aircraft of American and Russian origin. Scenario number 4, Israeli airstrikes, very importantly, on Iran's many nuclear facilities. Remember, Iran is a nuclear-armed country. It has nuclear facilities as well in places like Arak, Ardakan, Bonab, and Lavizan. There are many others. These could all be struck in airstrikes should there be some kind of an escalation. Scenario number 5, a targeted covert assassination of Iranian politicians could happen in Iran or in other countries during diplomatic visits. Mossad assassinations have been known to happen. This could be one way of conveying a message to Iran. And finally, scenario number 6, Mossad covert killings of Iranian officials, diplomats, or intelligence officers in other countries. Finally, escalated targeting of Iranian assets in places like Yemen, in Gaza, in Lebanon, or even in Syria could be at least a near-term, low-risk response from Israel at this point of time. Here's a detailed report taking you through this 360-degree view of response possibilities.
Ballistic missiles tearing through the night sky. West Asia is in turmoil as nearly 200 missiles were fired by Iran into Israel. Iran's ballistic missile attack on Israel has caused significant damage, claims the Iran Revolutionary Guards. Operation True Promise 2 targeted 3 key Israeli air bases, namely Nevatim, Hatzerim, and Tel Nof. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard stated that F-35 and F-15 fighter jets used in the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah were targeted. Iran also claimed that the Mossad headquarters was targeted in the precision strikes. The big question now is, how will Israel respond to attacks by Iran? Scenario 1. Israel may strike high-value targets like Iran's Tar Allah headquarters and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard command. Scenario 2. Israel could carry out airstrikes on Iran's underground missile bases. Scenario 3. Israel may carry out missile strikes on Iranian air bases. Scenario 4. Airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. Scenario 5. Targeted covert assassination of Iranian politicians. Scenario 6. Mossad covert killings of Iranian diplomats or intel officers abroad. And lastly, Scenario 7. Israel could target Iranian assets in Lebanon, Yemen and Syria. As tensions in the Middle East escalate, global concerns grow with World War III warnings from Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump. The US has deployed additional troops and more fighter jets to the Middle East as an attempt to mitigate the conflict between Israel and Iran's proxies from becoming a regional war. Bureau Report, India Today.